Nationally renowned poet, author, and performer Samantha Thornhill joins us now on Connections to talk about her expressive and provocative poetry. Right now on Connections. Welcome to Connections today. I'm Renee Shaw. We are not in the studio, as you probably gathered. We are at the Hyatt in downtown Lexington in this nice little cafe area. And we had the pleasure of catching up with Samantha Thornhill, who is a great poet, writer, and performer, and author, who is here for the Kentucky Women's Writers Conference. It was held in September. And thank you so much, Samantha, I'm going to call you, for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, you know, people may not in this area be familiar with you. You are young. I won't ask you how old you are, but you are young, but you have some very provocative poetry. And you said you started, when I was reading your bio, that you started writing poetry at the age of 11.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
So what was the inspiration for you?
Well, actually, it was a class assignment. It was a simple class assignment. A teacher told us to write a poem about Christmas. And I had read some poetry before, but I'd never been asked to write a poem. So I did, and I can't say it was very good. But I loved how it made me feel. You know, I always had a wild imagination as a child. And so that fact that I was able to put it on a piece of paper and there is now a forum for my feelings and my emotions and for my imagination, that was all I needed. So since that assignment, I've been writing poetry astutely ever since.
Yeah, and people are listening to you and they're thinking now, where is she from? Because that's not a Kentucky accent.
No, it's not.
Or a Brooklyn accent where you live now.
No, it's not.
Tell us about where you're from.
Well, I'm originally from Trinidad. I was born there, and I left Trinidad at the age of 7, and I moved to West Palm Beach, Florida. So really what you're hearing is a mixture really of all the places that I've been. You know, moving to a place that's foreign, you sort of have to adapt to your environment. And I sort of have been able to do that throughout my life. I never really fit anywhere, per se, you know, but I always kind of stand out. People know I'm not from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
You know, and even when I'm in Trinidad, people feel I'm not from Trinidad because I've been away so long.
Okay.
So there's always this sense that I'm from somewhere else.
Right, right. What prompted the move to the States when you were so young?
Well, parents.
Yeah.
The parents wanted to move to the States, more opportunities, you know, the land of gold sidewalks, and no, we didn't believe that. But you know, there were a lot of opportunities here for my family, my father's business and such. So he decided to move us over here.
Yeah, because a lot of us think that that's a great place to go on a vacation, you know?
It's known as a great vacation place.
Yeah, why would you ever leave?
Yeah.
And so, but you know, the land of opportunity, I guess.
Yes, and a lot of, it's interesting where people settle. A lot of Trinidadians live in South Florida. A lot of them live in New York, Brooklyn, Flatbush. You know, so it's really interesting where people settle.
And so how did you make your way to Brooklyn?
Well, it was an upward migration. So after I left South Florida, I graduated from Florida State University, which is in Tallahassee, and then I went to University of Virginia, so I went to Virginia, and then I got a job teaching at the Juilliard School in New York City, so I moved to New York. So really what brought me to New York was the opportunities that it presented to me.
And we did say Juilliard here, folks. I mean, this is the nation's premier performing arts school. I mean, there's no slackers there.
No, and if they are, they are quickly dismissed.
Yeah, that's right. And I understand that, you know, even though you started at 11, you know, and you started writing your first novel at 13, was it until college that you really kind of found your voice in poetry, or did it take that long?
Yeah, you know, the voice thing is interesting because you find it goes away. It's sort of like a radio signal, you know. You'll find something that's very authentic to you, and then it evolves. The voice is always evolving. You know, even now as I'm writing poems again, and I say that because I've been writing a novel for the past few years. I just started writing poetry again, and my poetry feels kind of different to me. You know, it sounds a little bit different to me. So I see that even though I feel like I found my voice, it's ever changing.
Right. And your poetry is what we call slam poetry, right? Is that the definition? Is that the true term of what you write? Or do you like to categorize yourself?
You know, that's an interesting one. I'm a poet that happens to slam every once in a while. I haven't even slammed in years, actually. Slam was a period that I went through for about 2-3 years where I was actually competing, but I just write poetry. But I'm invited. I take advantage of the slam stage, but I do poems that I would do anywhere on the slam stage.
And if people are thinking, now what is that noise? Is she slamming as she's speaking? We're at the Hyatt, as I mentioned, and we're hearing the rain come down pretty hard where we are here in downtown Lexington, so hopefully you can still hear us. Slam poetry, for those people who may not know what that is, what is slam poetry?
Slam poetry is competitive poetry. At the core of the definition, it is competitive poetry. It is a poem that you would do in a poetry competition. There's certain parameters. The poems can't be more than 3 minutes and 10 seconds.
Oh, wow.
That's really the only parameter. Okay. You don't have to, people think you have to get up there and yell at the top of your lungs. You have to go up on stage and slit your wrists and cry. And, no, it's not that dramatic.
Right.
You can do a whisper if you want. As long as it's 3 minutes and 10 seconds and less, then you can go on stage and slam it. But slam poetry is usually really hard-hitting.
Right,
it's raw.
Yeah.
It's honest. It's vulnerable.
And it can border, it can be pornographic. Sometimes we've heard, or it can be very provocative or crass.
Yes.
I mean, I think a lot of us have gone to these kind of poetry nights, and you've heard those types of things. You're like, wow, that's something I couldn't play to my kids, because the emotion is there. Is it angry? Do you think it's a way of expressing anger, or do all the emotions kind of come forth with that?
I think people see it as a form to express their anger, because for many people, slam is their scream. I think a lot of people are angry by the world, or angry about things that happen in their lives, and I think slam is a forum to let that out.
Right.
And sometimes you see it and it's well crafted and it's wonderful, and other times it's not so well crafted. It's just sort of like a scream, but not necessarily a crafted one.
Right.
So you're gonna, at any given slam you go to, you're going to see a lot of what you don't like, and you're probably going to see a lot of what you like. It's just sort of your taste. Maybe some people are speaking for you.
Right.
You're like, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't dare say that. But I'm glad she said it.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you may be even revolted. You may be offended.
Right.
But it's really in your face.
And is it impromptu or extemporaneous? I mean, I guess you've committed this to memory to be able to do it. So you're not reciting it from paper.
Some people slam on paper, and some slam on paper very well. But the norm is to write it, rehearse it, and then we call spit it.
And spit it.
But some people can slam off the top of their heads. Very few people can do it and do it well.
Right.
But for the most part, it's a rehearsed process.
So when I think of poetry, because I'm not in that genre, I think of Langston Hughes, and I think of all these great folks of old, and I don't necessarily think of modern day folks being into poetry or it even having necessarily a place in our culture. I'm sure you disagree with that. How does poetry kind of fit into this modern day society where we're all into blogging and all of this technology? Where does it fit as a medium?
It's tough. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
It's tough because people have all of these distractions, like you said. Aside from the blogs, there's television, there's entertainment, so the world has changed, and the world is ever changing. I think poetry is definitely struggling to find its place. I think where it has found its place is on Def Poetry Jam in terms of the national conversation.
Right.
And I think that's where people can flip on a Friday night and see poets. And that really has changed the game in a way.
Right.
It has flooded the scene with a lot of people who are interested in poetry, but they also think, I see that poem on Def Poetry Jam, that's what poetry is. And poetry is very
much
multifaceted.
Right.
Yeah.